content of her testimony. Just because she's got a colorful personality, just because she referred to me as a bald-headed dude or whatever, that doesn't mean her story, her statements aren't accurate. Was the evidence consistent with what she said? Wasn't she on the telephone with the victim? Isn't it true the defendant was following the victim? Didn't the victim attempt to get away? Didn't the defendant confront the victim? I don't think the defense will admit that. Defendant and the police didn't admit that. But what did he say? Oh, I was just looking for an address. Oh, I was just looking for the street. Oh. You were minding your own business, and all of a sudden, this victim that you were following just decided all of a sudden to attack you out of nowhere. In fact, she went a little further, I would submit. She warned the victim that maybe he was a sexual pervert. And again, colorful words were used by her to describe the defendant in terms of what the victim had described the defendant as. I would submit to you that that's an example that she's telling the truth. Now, she did lie about funeral and about her age originally to the police, to me, to the mother. Why? Okay, she's guilty of that. She didn't want to go have to see the body. She didn't want to deal with it. And she lied to the mother of Trayvon Martin. So you could disregard her testimony because of that. She lied about her age because she didn't want to come forward. Maybe she realized that she might have to testify and people would find out that she can't read cursive. Unfortunately. We have the defendant's non-emergency call. No dispute about that. That's recorded. I believe there might be a dispute as to whether the operator told him not to follow or not. You decide. What was in that recording? Why was it necessary to say that under his breath? Doesn't that kind of demonstrate what the defendant was feeling at the time? I mean, that wasn't information that he was providing to the operator. So that the officer could identify him, was it? Why is he uttering that word? Other than that's how he feels. Now, defense may get up here and tell you, oh, he was just angry. Well, you decide. I would submit to you on behalf of the state of Florida, that's more than a little angry. That's frustration. That's kind of ill will, hatred, that you've made up your mind he's a criminal, and you're tired of these criminals committing crimes, and my God, he's not going to get away.
All right, sir, what is your name?
Why was it necessary to, again, utter the words effing punk? If he hadn't already in his mind determined that he was a criminal, that Trayvon Martin was a criminal and he was not going to get away. Recall the testimony in terms of the entrance, and again we talked about the fact that there's only 3 streets. This is one. This is the one that circles all the way around, and there's another one. But of course, he claims to not know the street that he comes in every day, in and out, Twin Tree Lane, right here. He claims to not know that street. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to show you in that interview, with one of the interviews with the detective in the car leading up to it, he makes reference to the street name. And then, like, a minute later, he's talking about, I don't know the name of the street. He inadvertently let out that he was aware of that street, because he let out that that was a lie that he told the police so that it would justify why he is following, why he is profiling, why he is tracking a young man. And again, that's just a close-up of where this happened right here. You obviously are very well familiar with it, and we've got some more exhibits for that. We have Miss Lauer's call, the 911 call. And really, Miss Lauer, what did she say? She didn't see anything. She stayed inside. I think at some point in that phone call, she's telling her husband to be, I think they're married now, Jeremy Weinberg, Jeremy, get away from the window or do something. Don't go out there. But the bottom line is, she recorded it. But what did she say? Before the actual recording, before she called the police, she heard something going on out there. Because, see, this wasn't like the defendant claims that out of the blue, the victim just kind of attacked him and knocked him to the ground and they just started beating him. No, this started, I would submit, further down, but it didn't start right at the T where the defendant claims it occurred. Ms. Serdaga, you heard from her too. And we've got the vantage point in terms of there, where her place was. My recollection was she's got the cat, I think his name was Leo, who's got the ledge there, and she was kind of looking out, and she was reading. At some point she got up, she looked. She had a good vantage point. She did observe something. And what did she tell you? That in her opinion, based on what she saw, she thought the bigger man was on top. And she told you that the voice she heard, she thought was of a child versus an older person. Now, is she an expert? Had she ever heard these voices before? No. She's just telling you what she believes. Just like you've had a bunch of other people come in and say, oh, that is George Zimmerman's voice, and that is Trayvon Martin's voice. You decide. But she told you as best she could what she observed. And what's consistent in terms of what she observed and what happened. Because, see, the issue is, at that time, when there was contact between the defendant and the victim, did it occur as the defendant claims? First of all, you'd have to believe that he really wasn't following him, and he was just kind of minding his own business. He was going out for a walk. His walk got interrupted because some guy attacked him. You've got to believe that. You got to believe he wasn't following anybody. He wasn't up to doing anything. He was just kind of minding his own business. And as he was walking back, the victim, for some reason, just decided to go attack him. So you got to have that assumption. It's got to be accurate. And then you've got to assume that then the victim just hit him and knocked him to the ground and just started beating him. And poor defendant, poor George Zimmerman, he just kind of took it, boom, boom, just getting whacked over and over. He never did anything. Compare the sizes. And then, at the last moment, he was able to take out that gun, his concealed gun, and was able just to shoot him. You have the testimony of John Good, who did call 911, and the time frame is important in terms of when his call was made. I think in opening statements, the defense told you that, represented to you that he is the eyewitness. He is the crucial eyewitness. He's the only eyewitness. I beg to differ, but again, what's important is what you think. Let's talk a little bit about John Good. What did John Good tell you? He saw what he believed was the victim on top of the defendant. Now, he did not see the shooting. He saw it prior to the shooting. I would submit to you, when you kind of put all the witnesses together, that there wasn't just like the defendant knocking the victim down to the ground and then just staying on top of him and beating the hell out of him, I would submit to you that there was contact between them, that there was a fight, there was a struggle. Ironically, of the two, one of the individuals is the one that's had, 18 months MMA fighting? Oh, but of course, he's just a pudgy, overweight man. It's, I think, what Mr. Pollack said. He really didn't progress beyond the first level, but he's the one that's had MMA training of some type. But anyway, they interacted, they rolled around, and they fought. But again, you can't just take that in a vacuum. Why did this occur? What led up to this? And at the time of the shooting, was it necessary to shoot him? Well, the defense is going to parade the photographs of the injuries. I don't think I need to show you the one photo that counts, do I? The ME photo. Who suffered the most serious injury of all? You heard from Ms. Bahadur. What did she tell you? Oh, I apologize. Mr. Good. He said that he saw a struggle out there. He saw the victim, who he believes was the victim, based on clothing description, he didn't know him, on top of the defendant. And he saw the victims doing something to the defendant. He originally said it was MMA style, but when asked specifically, did you actually see blows? He said, no. I saw movement there. He may have been hitting him, but I don't know. What's also very important about what Mr. Good told you? He told you that he could not see the defendant's hands. So did the defendant have the gun out at that point? Was he trying to get it out? And was Trayvon Martin at that point, which is about, 25, 30 seconds or so before the shooting, was he trying to protect himself from that gun? Is that what the struggle was about? That at some point, this defendant had the gun? The defendant claims at the very end, right before, unfortunately, he had to shoot the victim, that the victim grabbed the gun. Unfortunately for him, the truth comes out, and it refutes what the defendant said. You recall the testimony of Mr. Gorgon in terms of the DNA? There wasn't any on the gun. Recall what he told his best friend, Mr. Osterman, what the defendant told Mr. Osterman, not like a month later, that same evening, meaning the morning after, when he picked him up at the police station and drove him to his house, that the victim had grabbed the gun. Not the holster, grabbed the gun. Excuse me, in fact, Mr. Osborne told you he wrote a book about it with his wife. Miss Bahadur told you that she heard something out there. I think it was either Miss Bahadur or Miss Serdaika heard something like no. I think that kind of matches up with what Rachel Gentile told you about, like, get off of me or something to that effect. Again, you all took great notes. I'm sure you paid attention to when the witnesses were out there. So I'm not going to cover every little minor point, but it's consistent with what Rachel Gentile told you. And she described, my recollection was that she described, she lives right here at 2841, she described movement this way. Was the victim headed home, as Miss Gentile told you? And I need to show you the bigger diagram, because you know what's ironic? Is recall, even the defendants from the defendant's own mouth, that they always got away, and this exit over here, the other exit, and the victim, you might recall, was staying right here. Was he headed there, and did the defendant kind of cut him off? But it's consistent with what Miss Bahadur told you in terms of from her back, left to right. And what did she see?